I kind of want to talk about the Oceanic League and the competition. So how can we get better? How can we take on, places such as the USA, South Korea? How can we collectively be better?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough question because I think the issue really comes from the fact that the US and the South Korea they really are a couple of years ahead of us, probably 3 to 5 years ahead of us in terms of the development of their scene. The US now you're seeing some major league baseball, some basketball team owners starting to buy esports teams now, starting to pour in huge amounts of money into team development, team branding, all of that stuff that it really does give them an advantage. So I think here in Australia, we've seen the most success on the international stage, games like Counter-Strike, where we are, I think naturally as a nation, we're pretty good at Counter-Strike because it was one of the games that was around here back in 2000, back when people were playing on, dial-up connections. But to actually reach that level of the US or Korean or any international, teams, what we're seeing is that the successful Australian teams who have done that have actually spent time overseas. So that's obviously a bit trickier now, but similarly to how if you're maybe want to become a great chef, you go to Noma, you go to a restaurant, some of the best restaurants over in Europe and train there. That's what some of our most successful Australian exports and New Zealand exports have done. They've, the Renegades, for example, Counter-Strike Go team, they went over, they had a house in Los Angeles. They played against, some of North America's best teams for, over 12 months and essentially mingled with them coming from Australia. And that's what worked really well for them. Just, going over there and playing against players of that skill level. And guess what? They're Australians now. They've been top 10 in the world for Counter-Strike and definitely overrepresented us as a country. So.
And do you think it's just a matter of being around the best, or is it kind of having more people behind them? So I think I read that Drake is interested in esports and he's brought up a team, same as LeBron is looking into it as well.
Yep.
So these big names, these titans, top of their field, top of the food chain kind of guys getting into, esports, and they can kind of see into the future and they know that's where it's headed. Should more Australians come on board like that, where you kind of have that financial backing and then after the backing, everything follows?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit biased working in esports, but absolutely they should, 100%. And it's a great time to come on board. We have seen, I think, the Adelaide Crows, they've got the investment in legacy esports, the League of Legends and Counter-Strike team. So I think we also previously saw Essendon get involved a little bit as well with their League of Legends team. So we've seen a few teams kind of dabbling like that in Australia, but yeah, definitely not to that level. And I think, now is very much the time for some of those bigger brands with, a bit more capital to get involved, to invest in the scene in esports, because again, at the end of the day, in 5-10 years, this is only going to be growing. And whereas you look at, maybe some traditional sports viewership numbers that, sure, up a little bit over the pandemic, but in general, not something that's growing within the younger demographics, that certainly not as much as esports is growing. I think it's a really smart investment for these really entertainment brands to make, to stay connected to a younger audience.
And I guess a rookie's guide, why would, say, the AFL be interested in esports? Like what's their kind of relationship and what's kind of their agenda behind it?
Yeah, definitely. So, you look at a team like, say, the Adelaide Crows, who pick up their own team in League of Legends, and what they want to do there is they want to kind of build back up a connection with very young potential fans. So, fans under the age of around 24, that's who's going to be following, the legacy esports team. And they want it so that when legacy esports, when their team, shows up on the big stage at the Melbourne Esports Open or any other event in Australia or even online, they want people to associate them with the Adelaide Crows, really engage with them, feel like, yeah, they're the team to follow, so that when those younger fans of Legacy grow up a little bit and perhaps, get a little bit more involved with the football, they by default, associate and become fans of the Adelaide Crows. So it's very much, joining those two areas of interest, or joining the two codes, and sort of bridging the demographic gap that currently exists between, esports and traditional sports.
And do you think, if you're a betting person, that one day esports will take over traditional sports? Is that kind of what you're seeing? Is that what the trend, is saying to you, and all the research behind the data?
Yeah, I think it's a big call to make whether esports will take over traditional sports. I think it definitely won't happen anytime soon at all, because of course traditional sports has so much investment behind it. You look at probably the advertising budget for one football match exceeds what would be spent on perhaps a year of a program, an esports program here in Australia at least. So they're very much ahead in that regard. But when you actually look at the growth statistics and how big esports is becoming, I think globally, esports is already overtaking some of the smaller sports. So I think last year's League of Legends World Finals had a higher viewership than I think it was like the ice hockey finals over in North America or something like that. I saw a statistic on, but it's not going to overtake every sport. I don't think, esports in general, just because for the same reason that, that mainstream sports don't all have viewership into the one game. It's because people like different games. And so at the end of the day, esports isn't going to get 10 million viewers watching League of Legends just because there might not be 10 million fans of that particular game. Whereas if you add them all up, definitely we're going to keep on growing and become a force to be reckoned with, I think, as regions like North America and Europe already are in terms of viewership.